Man is basically good? It is daunting to wrestle with big ideas like the nature of mankind, but that is what we will do today. So buckle up, Buttercup. We need to answer the question, is mankind basically good? Between 1941 and 1945, Hitler's Nazi regime exterminated 6 million Jews, 10 million Soviet civilians and prisoners of war, 2 million Polish civilians, 500,000 gypsies, 250,000 disabled, 1 to 2 million political prisoners, and other unwanteds. That does not include the combined military and civilian casualties of World War II, which rose to 70 to 85 million. When I learned about World War II and the Holocaust, it was from a history book. The black and white pictures of emaciated Jews at Auschwitz left an imprint, but it was impersonal and blandly summarized in a single chapter of a textbook. It made no more impact on my world than the Battle of Troy. Later, I saw Steven Spielberg's Schindler's List, and that film brought it into full grotesque clarity. I remember thinking something along the lines of, but it was a long time ago. Certainly humans have progressed past that kind of barbarism. After all, people always say that humans are fundamentally good. On April 6, 1994, the Rwandan president's plane was shot down, triggering a violent ethnic conflict for power in Rwanda between the Tutsi minority and the Hutu majority. Within hours of the crash, the Hutu started a coordinated campaign of slaughter against the Tutsi and many Hutu who objected to the genocide. Over 100 days, 800,000 Rwandans were killed. I was in high school when this happened. I remember hearing about the Rwandan genocide. I didn't know the depth of the violence. Hundreds of thousands killed with machetes and clubs would probably be something that is sterilized for the nightly news. Still, I couldn't fathom how humans could slaughter their fellow man so brutally. It seemed like something that belonged in ancient times, not our modern world. It was a demonstration of evil that my young mind had no precedent for. In my life experience, a school bully was the embodiment of evil. Yes, I guess I did benefit from a sheltered childhood. I didn't know that some parents beat and abused their kids. I couldn't fathom it. When I learned that my life experience wasn't representative of everyone's, I was shocked, horrified, and confused. How could people do that to each other? I was cured of that naive notion that the mass destruction of innocents only took place in the distant past. The transatlantic slave trade forcibly transported millions of Africans to the Americas between the 16th and 19th centuries. They were subjected to inhumane conditions, forced labor, and every kind of abuse. This slave trade was finally brought to an end through the abolitionist efforts of William Wilberforce in 1807, and slavery itself was abolished in the British Empire in 1833, 3 days after his death. The American Civil War, 1861 to 1865, ended the practice of slavery in the United States. It came as a great shock to my young mind when I learned that that wasn't all the slavery story. It had existed before, during and after the history that I knew, all over the globe. It seemed inconceivable. In 2021, it is estimated that 50 million people live in slavery. That's 1 in every 150 people globally. Slavery isn't a thing we have progressed beyond. The more I consider this, the more I distrust the idea that humanity is progressing at all. If mankind is basically good, as people keep telling me, how are any of these atrocities possible? And how do they keep happening? As of December 2024, 110 armed conflicts are active worldwide. On average, 80,000 to 238,000 people are killed every year in war. This fluctuates greatly with the number of active conflict zones and the intensity of the wars. It's been like this since Cain killed Abel. The numbers are growing with population increases, but it feels like the same story every generation. I am struggling to see evidence for the notion that mankind is basically good. It feels necessary to mention one more atrocity, though I wish I didn't need to. Abortion is the modern Holocaust, collecting more victims per year than all the wars on Earth. It is particularly evil because it turns our most vulnerable, mothers in difficult circumstances, into the tutu with machetes. An atrocity that causes lifelong emotional damage. In 2023, an estimated 1,026,700 abortions took place in the United States. Worldwide, the story is even more grim. The World Health Organization estimated that 73 million pregnancies are ended by induced abortion per year around the globe. That's a World War II level of casualties every year. If we are basically good, how can we find this status quo acceptable? Okay, that's all I can take on that side of the argument, though I've only listed a few. I think you get the point. For further evidence of the depravity of man, just pick up a history book. Now we will shift our focus to the light side of human nature, and not soon enough. I was getting depressed. Stories of human goodness are everywhere. They are generally on a smaller scale. One family gives a Thanksgiving turkey to another that is in need. A father and mother love, protect, and educate their children in blessed obscurity. The stranger helps a man who has been beaten and robbed by local thugs like a modern-day Good Samaritan. I believe altruism in any form is an outgrowth of human goodness. It happens billions of times a day. We don't see all of it, and the history books could never record all the good things mankind has done. Every so often, a situation breaks through the news cycle and captures our attention. Remember the kids' soccer team in Thailand that got stuck 2.5 miles inside a cave when a sudden monsoon rain quickly flooded their exit? Watch the documentary called The Rescue, or the movie called 13 Lives, if you don't remember. It is a gripping tale of humans risking their lives to save the 12 boys and their coach. This story exemplifies altruism in crisis. That's 4 points for the goodness of man. I love it. Doesn't it just warm your heart to hear the good things? Gives me hope. Some people assert that we help each other solely because it benefits the group's survival. I think that's where the phrase teamwork makes the dream work comes from. Sharing resources and banding together for protection. They might be right about that, but does that seem like an argument for the goodness of mankind? To me, it seems like the obvious response to human cruelty, as well as the difficulty of general survival. Either way, it is good to see goodness overcoming evil. Everyone loves that story. Moving on to a common and more mundane form of goodness. I would assert that every honest business transaction is an act of human goodness. We don't usually think of it that way, do we? The business does the work of providing the good or service at a price that the buyer agrees is worth it. This win-win situation occurs billions of times per day around the world, and each one sustains or improves life. That is good. Notice, I did say honest business transaction. I know the world has a long history of business interests becoming the rationale for all kinds of violations. Remember, I've read a few history books in my time. I heard a guy at Best Buy the other day blaming the corpos for a bad business policy. I wanted to buy an Apple phone without a cell phone plan, but apparently Apple doesn't allow third-party vendors to do that, so I would have to drive across town to the Apple store. The policy was causing me some minor inconvenience, so I wasn't feeling pro-big business at that moment. He said corporation as a pejorative, as if to say all of them are evil. According to this evil business narrative, businesses do nothing but take advantage of people. That is not the reality. I chose to buy my overpriced phone because I had calculated the cost per hour of usage value and found the price acceptable. That is a good thing. It makes my life better. This basic human interaction is positive and foundational to all civilization. Sure, when businesses get too powerful, they tend to do the same things that governments do when they get too powerful. Crush all opposition and steal from the citizenry in any way they can to improve their bottom line. The idea that all corpos are evil is also wrong. It's a communist idea. It's the eat the rich and down with the bourgeoisie for this generation. In my view, the communist ideology doesn't have a legitimate voice in this debate, as they have been collectively responsible for 85 million deaths in the 20th century alone. Humans commit everyday acts of kindness, work together to help large groups of people by building charities, demonstrate empathy from infancy, have an innate sense of fairness and justice, and widely cultivate traditions, rituals, and teachings focused on compassion, generosity, and moral behavior. So, how do we square this circle? Is mankind basically good or not? Since we have been talking in generalities, it might be good to look at the individual, because that is where all these statistics are derived. Each one of us has the profound ability to choose what we will do, moment by moment. Free will is that glorious and terrifying gift that we are given with life. I think most people over 40 would agree that it's easy to mess it up. It takes years to build a good reputation and only a moment to destroy it. If mankind were basically good, it seems to me that it wouldn't be so hard to do things consistently. It would be my default setting to give it a computer phraseology. I don't know about you, but the reality inside my brain is that every morning I wake up wanting to do my thing. I want what I want, and I want it right now. I don't feel like serving others. It doesn't come naturally to sacrifice my comfort, convenience, or agenda for others. It's not even natural to serve those that I love, which makes no sense if I am good by nature, as people say. This is the strongest evidence against the supposition of the innate goodness of mankind. By most measures of goodness, you would probably say I'm a decent guy, but I have intimate access to my thoughts, emotions, and desires. I know that doing good is a force of my will. When I stop trying, it stops happening. This proves to me that I am not naturally a good person. I must choose, minute by minute, whether I will or won't be good. Okay, so I am naturally selfish. That means that to achieve anything particularly good in my life, I must put my natural appetite to death. That's what Jesus was talking about in Luke 9:23. Then he said to them all, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me." NIV. The cross for the ancient Romans was an instrument of torture, execution, and intimidation. It was the worst possible death, and it was the death that Jesus would die shortly after saying these words. He knew he was walking to a sacrificial death on a cross. He called us to follow him. Ouch, my selfish little heart cringes. I think a quick glance through the history of mankind reveals that we have been the instigators of great evils and wonderful goods, but an honest look inward convinces me that mankind is bent and broken. We desire good, we value good, we aspire to good, but we miss that mark. We pursue our appetite for power and pleasure and rationalize our actions. We tell ourselves that the ends justify the means. But the ends don't justify the means. They never have. They never will. The religious tradition that most resonates with my conclusions is the Christian one. According to the Bible, mankind was created perfectly good. But since we were also given free will, we chose to disobey God, and our originally designed good nature was broken. The story of history, and the specific histories recorded in the Bible, are the story of God fixing this fundamental problem. We are no longer naturally good, and we can't make ourselves so. God sent his only Son, Jesus Christ, to pay for the debt accrued by humanity's broken choices by doing the most unselfish thing in human history, sacrificing his life for the payment of our sin, so that a path might be opened for the broken souls of mankind to be rescued and repaired back to the original design. The original human condition was good. That's why we value goodness, strive for goodness, and are confounded by our inability to achieve goodness. According to the Bible, any human who chooses to follow Jesus has a future and hope, a future like the original plan for humanity. Good. That takes us to the crux of the argument. Are you basically good? Bad? Neutral? It all hinges on free will and the choice that you make.